It's the moment you didn't know you're waiting for.
He is Carter.
He's Chad.
And this is the
Irish 365 podcast.
Chad, this is Lou Holtz. That's head coach of Notre Dame for 11 years. Greatest experience of my life. They're starting a Notre Dame podcast this summer. I have a podcast as well, but it's not about Notre Dame football, although I wish there were. But congratulations on your success. And it would be nice if I could be on your podcast, but my schedule is so hectic. But anything that has to do with Notre Dame, I'm all for it. God bless you. Go Irish.
Welcome into the Irish 365 podcast, episode 23.
23.
Michael Jordan's number.
Yeah.
LeBron's number.
Old number 2-3.
Huh? Trevor, where are you going? But we got a big one this week. We got the Florida State preview. We got the preseason ACC favorites coming to town for a night game.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a big one, right?
I'm excited.
It's going to be a big one, right?
I'm excited.
Okay. All right.
All right. Yeah, well, who knew? Like,
Yeah.
I
think plus 200 to win the ACC coming into the season.
I would not have, in any scenario, predicted them to be 1-7.
We joked about this, like this team could be 500 like early on in the season, but I don't think we're even convincing ourselves like 500. Like, could they be 500 coming into this game? And boy, they're not 500.
I thought 500 was the floor.
Yeah.
I did not think they could be less than 500, but it's interesting. Now, the problem is I haven't spent a whole lot of time studying Florida State because there's not been much to watch.
No.
They're not making a lot of highlights on the ESPN.
There's not a lot of stats to look
There's
at.
not a lot of stats to look at. So we need some help.
Yes.
We are going to have to get some help for this. And I thought, how can I get some help? I need to call somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I need to have somebody come in.
Yes.
I need somebody who happens to be a Florida State fan to come help us out.
Or for them, right?
Yeah. I mean, so we're going to bring in Bowman.
Okay.
James Bowman,
Oh,
right? He likes to go by Bowman. So for the show purposes, we're going to call him Bowman. So I'm going to call you Jim. I think I'm going to have to go with Jim.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So Jim, welcome to the Irish 365 podcast.
Welcome in. Welcome into the studio.
You're on a short list of guests that have been into the studio.
Yeah.
A very short list.
Yes.
We've got one caller and one studio guest if you don't count Christy, Maddie, and Kate.
Yep.
So,
Feel honored.
So yeah, well, welcome, Jim.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
How are you doing?
It's been a long year.
Okay. how about the snacks in the green room?
We don't have throw all the red M&Ms.
That's part of the writing. Actually, the funny story about that is the reason Van Halen originally put that in their writer was because they had so much pyrotechnics back in the day that they knew if the writer was read properly and completely, there would be no brown M&Ms in the bowl. If they walked in and there were brown M&Ms in the bowl, they knew that no one read the writer and there was a whole pyrotechnics thing. So, they started the whole thing there. So, little rock trivia for you.
There you go.
Not my genre, but
Thank you
I can give you some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bringing that dad knowledge in here. So Jim, I find this interesting and fascinating. We should probably draw the connection that you are the brother to Jordan.
Yep.
Jordan B., who's been on the podcast a couple of times. He's our resident ACC expert.
Yes.
Because he's in the heart of ACC country, just a mere 30 hours drive from Stanford.
Right. Yeah.
But Jordan grew up with an affinity for the Irish. You did not. So you're a Florida State guy, and you've been a Florida State guy for as long as I can remember. So how does a kid in central Indiana grow up and become a Florida State fan? What do you think? What do you contribute that to? How'd you get to this place in your life?
That's not the first time I've been asked that question. So
yeah, and
I kind of give the same answer for the last 31 years. Is that one Saturday afternoon I stumbled into the living room. I don't remember anybody being up or didn't know anybody was at, and I think the TV was on. I can't remember if it was on or not, and just started channel surfing like a normal 11-year-old kid does, and I happened to stumble on the Florida State game, and you could kind of say it's love at first sight.
Well, and you got to put this in perspective because this would have been 90.
This
93.
92. This 93.
Would have the 93.
The 93 season. Yes.
Yeah. So this is when Florida State was a powerhouse.
Yeah, and I had no clue that.
Yeah, I mean, but but there was some great Florida State teams I mean, like Deion Sanders was at Florida State at that time, right?
No.
Was that?
Deion Sanders was like class of like 88 or 89.
He was before that.
Yeah, this was Charlie Ward.
Okay, but Charlie Ward.
Yeah, this was the. I kind of got the timeline mixed up on some of this because I kind of went back through Wikipedia. They know everything.
Yeah.
On what game I was watching, but I can't remember the team. I remember it was 3 or 4 games before the Notre Dame game. Coined the game of the century. So this was about 3 games or 4 games before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean this is and really the Notre Dame Florida State game was kind of an interesting game of the century, and it was when Notre Dame was still dominant from that what started probably in the mid-late 80s with Lou Holtz and went through the Catholics versus Convicts with Miami. Miami had started falling off. Florida State was coming up. At that time, I used to refer to them as Free Shoes U because they got little Bobby Bowden got a little trouble for players getting free shoes at the old local sporting goods store. That was way before Jameis Winston.
I was going to say, I was going to bring up Krabs at some point.
I guess Florida State guy's going to get a little bit of grief every now and then.
Yeah.
But this was a time period when Florida State itself was really becoming a premier football program. They were on the rise. They were in the ascension. And Notre Dame won the game of the century, but I think the 5 to 6 years following that, Florida State was historically, on average, a better team. So yeah, I mean, they ran pretty hard through late 90s, right? I mean, you're in that 11 to 18-year-old time period. They were a great team to follow. A lot of good wins, a lot of good big wins. So they get a national championship in that time period.
Yes, we did. Thanks to Boston College beating you guys on last second field goal.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
No friendly reminder.
Yeah, I will never forget that game because my friend Jason was.
Do you remember where you were at when that happened?
I was in the car driving from Ball State to IU. We left. We were going down to IU to see Jason. There was 4 of us going down. We got in the car, and I didn't want to go, but 3 of the guys were like, "Come on, we don't get down there late. We can listen to the game in the car." I literally listened to the second half of that game in the car, and I could not believe we lost. Like, these guys compromised. You can watch the first half of the game here, and then we're getting in the car and we're driving to Bloomington. I was one of my least favorite weekends in Bloomington ever. I was so mad, so miserable, so angry, to say the least.
Yeah.
But there were some good bumper stickers. I think one of my favorite bumper stickers was like Notre Dame 24, National Champion 23. That was a bumper sticker I saw that year. So yeah, I do remember I was at during that game, and like Boston College, heartbreaker. So yeah, you were at that age, 11 years old. You're starting to form sports alliances. You just happened to be on TV, and it hit you right.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a better story, but I really don't.
It wasn't because your brother liked Notre Dame and your dad liked Notre Dame, and you're just trying to be, trying to be a rebel. That didn't have anything to do with it.
Jordan was a Notre Dame fan. Yeah, I think
it might have been. Yeah, because he
was a little later. He was a little younger than I was. Because like you said, you get to the age where you kind of start understanding sports more. And before that, I was a bandwagon jumper. Really, to be honest with you, because when you're a younger kid, you're very impressionable, right? So I think kind of Miami Hurricanes had at one time, which I'm kind of sad to say that I did. Yeah, I can't believe I had a hat. I had a North Carolina Tar Heel T-shirt. I remember that. So once I saw Florida State on TV that day, and just the helmets they popped, and the war chant was playing in the background, it was definitely something that stuck with me, and I never changed any team since then.
You know what? I don't get the Florida State, but I love loyalty to your team.
Yep.
When you get a team and it sets right with your soul, I love the loyalty to it. So,
right.
So yeah, now we get into Florida State. We got Florida State, Notre Dame, and we've had bets in the past on this game, and I'm gonna guess you're not willing to bet me on this game this year. And
unless you're going to give me the point spread,
yeah.
Because
unless you're going on the
straight up when we did this back 20 years ago, and we were doing pretty good even up. Because I think the first time we actually done it was 2002, and that game was at Florida State, and I don't know how, but you guys won. I think Carlisle Holiday or somebody was a quarterback.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was like somebody who didn't even play quarterback on a regular basis beat us, and I was I was stunned.
Yeah,
And then that got you a free steak dinner.
yeah,
And then in 2003, I went to the game. Me and Jordan actually went to the game. That's the first Florida State Notre Dame game I went to.
yep.
And Florida State won 37-0. And so I got my free dinner.
You were repaid.
Yes, I was.
And how do you like your steak?
Free.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, so this game's a long rivalry. I don't know how long it is. I think it goes back into the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
where
I'm trying to think. I should have looked that up today. I couldn't really remember when it started because I know like 93, but how many times did they play previous to that?
It's not that much because I
not as
remember
many as you
talking
think.
about it in our preseason poll, and I see if I can find
Like,
it.
there's been some epic.
They've only played 11 times, Notre Dame and Florida State. This is the 12th meeting because as a younger fan, I was like, I think of Notre Dame and Florida State like a big 90s rival. Like I assumed it went back farther than that. Like,
Your entire life, it's been a big rivalry.
right, like
And-
it's been considered a rival. So I was like 11 times. We're only up 6-, or Florida State leads 6-5.
Yeah, but even though I'm the senior guy in this group, it's been a big rivalry most of my like fandom of Notre
Yeah.
Dame. I mean, my Notre Dame fandom started again probably around 11, 12 years old when it really took hold. But Florida State's been there like the entire time. I mean, from the mid '80s that I've been paying attention. So yeah, I mean, for us, it feels like it's an old time rivalry. But there's not the 100 games that we've played Navy.
No.
But it's been a good rivalry. And what we always say about Florida State is they have athletes, right? The state of Florida, I mean, you throw a rock out a car and you're probably going to hit a running back. And good chance you throw a stick out the car, you're going to hit 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, it just talent is just oozing all over Florida. And I know Tallahassee's North Florida, technically, and a lot of people say the talent is in the South Florida. But we've been on Florida vacation, spring break, what have you, and I'm just amazed because you don't see it in Indiana. Kids out playing spring football, their helmets and pads in March, for spring football season. So
it doesn't look like the first practice of the year either.
yeah, it's serious. They play a lot of football, especially the skilled guys. And with the 7-on-7 series and that kind of stuff, I mean, those guys are getting work all the time.
365, yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a different animal. The weather's conducive to it. I mean, I know we got some like 7-on-7 stuff here in northern Indiana now, but it's it's all inside, it's on turf, it's limited facilities. Out there, man, every kid can just play year round.
Yep.
So we know Florida State's going to bring in athletes. But what? So you've watched a lot of games. You've watched highlights. You've done more than I have because I haven't seen a whole lot of highlights. So what's gone well for Florida State this year? That's telling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long pause because I don't have an answer for you because
the game's ending. Has that gone well? Like, I mean, it's over. We don't have to watch anymore.
They're in the bottom in every offensive category in the nation. I think Ball State has a better offense than we do. When you average a little over 15 points a game, that's not going to get the job done. Sometimes the defense has a hard time stopping a runny nose.
So my question for you is, we come into this season and you've got DJ coming in as a quarterback. What's like, I'm assuming you're on the Twitter, you're on the Facebook message board. What's like is Florida State like genuinely excited about this? Like, this is a dude that's in his third school in 3 years.
But
like
4 years ago, he was the next Trevor
I
Lawrence.
know, but like,
yeah,
had all the potential in the world, but like, were Florida State fans like genuinely excited about this? Because like I remember watching that Georgia Tech game because it's week 0, like it's the only game.
That's the only time I've seen him
like
play.
exactly, like that's the only game on that week. Everyone's kind of watching. It was kind of like, this dude is crap. Like still,
yeah.
So what was like the thought coming in preseason? Like,
honestly, if we rewind this a year ago, right after we have an undefeated season,
right?
Yeah.
The question was what we were going to do to keep the momentum up of what we had going, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a question of, okay, do we go to the portal and start replacing all these guys we're losing to the NFL, or are we going to develop a guy and take over Jordan Travis and, and some other skill positions that we had. And I think Mike Norvell wanted to keep the momentum going off the 13-0 season and hit the portal like we usually have in the past. And it's flipped the roster around and made our team pretty decent the past 2 years. And so DJU, to answer your question, was probably a a 50-50 thing, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people didn't want a Clemson guy coming to Florida State.
Yeah.
That's a rivalry. Yeah,
Yeah. And like you said, he jumped schools a few times. He had a decent year at Oregon State. He was there actually, and he's a serviceable quarterback, right? He didn't have to come in and be the savior, right? The way Mike Norvell's offense is set up is basically a running attack with up speed tempo. He preaches speed all the time, and that's what he does. And so the main thing was for DJ was to come in with the big arm, and if you don't respect the run, we're going to run it down your throat. And when you bring all you guys up in the box, we're going to throw it over your head and hit you with speed receivers over the top.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be the thing. So, and clearly, when you watch them play, they couldn't do any of that. The offensive line was supposed to be an asset this year. He called it the best offensive line he's had since he was there. They don't block anybody. It's a turnstile, basically, to say the least. So, when you can't block it up front in the trenches, you realize that's where the game is won.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, you're going to have a hard time moving the ball. And then you become very predictable. And Mike is a pretty creative guy when it comes to offense. And that's kind of how he made his mark. He came from Memphis. So, he worked his way up to get to where he needs to be. But some of the fans now have definitely turn their back on him now. All the ill will you build up in the past 2 seasons, goes away really quickly.
Well, yeah,
when you have performances like this week in and week out.
I mean, we can talk about that from the Notre Dame perspective. I mean, Marcus Freeman was a loved hire. Yeah. And the first couple of years, people were like all on. And now year 3, everybody was like, this is year 3. Coaches win the national championship. Marcus Freeman's going to make this leap forward. And there were people starting to question whether he should keep his job after the NIU loss. I mean, all the attaboys go away real quick with one screw up.
Just like that, snap the fingers.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, because Norvell, this is year 5. What is this for Freeman? Is this year
3?
Yep.
Year 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, the difference is Freeman come into this never having head coaching experience, where Norvell came in with previous head coaching experience. And it, like you talked about last year, again, I didn't follow Florida State a lot, but I'm aware of them because the Notre Dame ACC connection. Because you're an ACC or a Florida State guy, I pay attention to them. There's some high school football team that I've never been to a game in, but somehow I've got them on my Max Preps account. I'm seeing how this number 4 quarterback's what kind of stats he's putting up. I did get to see him play on TV a little bit, so but anyway, so you pay attention to these games and you see how things are going, and and so. I'm not a Florida State fan, but I've kind of paid attention to them because I know somebody who is. And last year, I mean, you guys lost your starting quarterback, went to your backup quarterback, didn't miss a beat, and only because you went to your third string quarterback did you miss the playoffs last year. And so, was it that big of a turnover in the roster? I know guys went pro, but I don't know how many guys went NIL. But was it a big NFL? Was it a big roster turnover from last year? Because
D-line, I think, right?
Yeah. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk. Those guys were portal guys who came in and tremendously turned the program around. Yeah. Which is a kind of a rarity sometimes when you look at the portal, because a lot of people think these guys are hired guns, right? Like, you're just coming in here to play 1 year rental, and these guys that they brought in over the past few years, and I can name Keon Coleman, and I can go, the list goes on for a lot of guys. They really accepted and embraced Florida State and its culture. So I think that makes a big difference when you win a locker room over with a bunch of guys who are there for the first time, right? And that's a big thing. So,
so do you think that's the problem then this year? They didn't win the culture this year?
I
just didn't buy in.
That's a good thing. That's a good question, Carter. A lot of people, when you're this bad, at fan base, if you get on any certain, chat rooms or you said a Facebook, I'm a part of a Knowles Only Facebook group. Yeah. And I'm constantly infighting. I've gotten plenty of fights with people online already. I had to make sure my address wasn't available for me to look up.
It's hard to ship things to Indiana from Florida, right?
Yeah. Well, you never know. The people, Florida man, they're
Florida man's known to do
yeah,
some
you
things.
never know. You never know. Somebody might pull up in the driveway and honk their horn and be waiting for me.
When a news article starts, a
Yeah.
Florida man, you know it's
That's a
gonna be
real
good.
popular thing. Just Google Florida man and type in your birthday, and you'll be surprised what comes up.
So we don't know anything about that because Notre Dame fans are always so
Yeah,
level-headed.
we're great. I mean,
That's what I was going to ask you. You said you're a member of some Irish groups on Facebook. You said you're a member of some of the Facebook pages you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, got your you're a Radic fan, right? Who's diehard passionate and go scorch earth when you lose a game, and then you have the opposite fan who barely pays attention and asks all the dumb questions all the time, like during a bye week, like, I can't find the game. You're like, you just want to shake your head, and people start just ripping people like that. And then you got, like I said, the opposite, where the diehard passion fan.
Yeah, they
where
know the
they want
player's
to fire
grandma's
everybody.
name and birthday,
Yeah,
and
these players are his NIL is the worst thing that ever happened to college sports, and these guys don't deserve their money, and they need to be taken away. And it's a really tricky time for college sports, right? Because you see coaches quitting now because of this.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things that it's comical in a sense, even though it's sad as it is to watch every week. I get some enjoyment when I go on the Facebook page and read the comments, because you just never know what you're going to see.
Oh yeah, I've made this mention on our podcast a couple of times. So Notre Dame has, it seems like 100 million TV timeouts, and so what I typically do during the TV timeout is I pull my phone out, I look at social media.
He does Facebook. I usually do X or Twitter.
Just to see other scores, what's going on. And it'll crack me up. I've seen it within two posts of each other multiple times this year. Riley Leonard for Heisman. He's the worst quarterback ever. He sucks.
Yeah.
Freeman for president. Fire Freeman.
Like within 5-minute postings of each other.
Yeah. And it's like these people are watching the same game I'm watching. What's going on? And so, you see that. And I think this is something Carter and I have talked about recently. It's like, we got to do a whole show on this conversation and the whole social media thing. Because what's really driving me nuts this year more than anything else is real Notre Dame fans don't get excited when the team runs up the score on lesser teams. Real Notre Dame fans aren't happy if we beat,
And that's got to be a Facebook thing, because I do not see it at all.
Yeah, and so if it's a Facebook thing, it's probably a little more older than your generation. It's not your peers. It's
he gets fired up about this one.
He's like
the real Notre Dame fan. He's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is a real Notre Dame fan. Some of them are what we call the casuals, which are those people that post on. And I think there's people who do that on social media to troll.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
They know it's a bye week.
And there's
what time are we playing? What channel are we on?
How can we get these people fired up?
It's
I'm bored. There's no game
bored.
today. Yeah.
And there's a lot of keyboard warriors that are just looking for something to do. I mean, hey, there was a guy that went out and pretended to be a woman so he could get that conversation with Manti Te'o, right? I mean, people get bored and do interesting things with their time.
Especially on social media.
And, I see it all the time. I think people are way too smart and not enough activity in their minds, so they just find ways to create themselves entertainment. So anyway, social media is something else. So if you're on some Knowles only fans, this and that and the other, I'm sure you see some interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And, I see it all over the board. I mean, there's Notre Dame the podcasts and different stuff. And if you follow them, there's the angry fan. It doesn't matter what we do, we suck. There's the Pollyanna fan, and there's the fan that thinks he's the next great, Vince Lombardi. He can break down every play, and he can criticize. It's like, dude, if you knew so much about football, why are you sitting here in your basement doing a podcast?
Yeah, why are you not coaching your boys?
Why aren't you coaching the freaking Dallas Cowboys? Because they're looking, right?
Yeah, it's the guys who the coach hated me. That's why I didn't go Division I, or I broke my arm in the state championship game. So
these guys that whatever. Like, hey, if I was taller, faster, stronger, I could have gone to the NFL too.
Missed out though.
There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks. Yeah,
so there's a lot of those.
I like that armchair quarterback.
You see a lot of those different fans, and they've all got different opinions. And there's a place for all of them. You need all of them in your ecosphere, your universe.
Right.
It's what makes it exciting. I mean, the passion's what makes it, right? And we were down in Atlanta for the Georgia Tech game for Notre Dame, and it was dead. Like there wasn't a lot of. It just didn't have a great atmosphere. It's like, ooh, this is not good.
Yeah. You think is that because you're in NFL stadium?
I think a little bit. I think Georgia Tech was just down.
Yeah.
Not was it? That far, but
yeah, Georgia, Texas that day.
It was just it was just that. So, but yeah, you need those passionate fans. That's what makes the team. You know, there's always going to be the people that aren't happy, the people that are excited, the people that are, but whatever. So what do you think? I mean, is there a way? And I'm going to ask this question because normally what we try and do is we say, okay, this is what Notre Dame is going to want to do against Florida State. And I think for Notre Dame, the key to victory is going to be do what you do, right?
Yep. Start fast.
We want to start fast. We want to run the ball, you know, both quarterback, running back, and then we want to get Riley Leonard comfortable and then let him throw when the defense tries to take away the run. And defensively, I think we want to just try and get you guys. We're going to give you short plays, but we're going to try and keep you in like 3rd and long. Let our corners go 1-on-1 versus your receivers. I think you got a couple of good receivers, but
if DJ
I don't know if anybody
plays,
can get him to the ball.
If DJ plays, let him throw to his favorite targets.
He loves throwing the Notre Dame guys. So I think we'll play kind of our style. I don't think we'll do anything different, anything unique. This is a big recruiting weekend for Notre Dame.
Not just football, too.
Like, not just football.
Yeah.
But there are still some 2025 class kids that are going to be at this game that they want to get to commit or to flip. There's a wide receiver they're trying to get to flip. There's a couple linebackers. So Notre Dame is going to want to put on a show, and night games at Notre Dame.
It's our only home night game this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They do the light show. They do it'll be all out, and the coaches are going to want to put on a show, and impress these kids about coming here, winning football. So I think, I'm thinking Notre Dame's going to come out and won the college football playoff. We can talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But those rankings come out, and Notre Dame's going to want to get some style points because Notre Dame is sitting here at 10. On the outside of hosting a game, but still pretty solid in being in the playoffs.
Yep.
I know they'd love to have that first game at home. And you got to get up a couple spots to do that. There's some teams in front of you that are going to probably lose.
Yeah.
I expect Notre Dame to do something with style points if they can. Margin of victory, I think it's going to be cold. Not cold, but
52.
Cold for Florida State cold.
52
right?
at kick, 40.
Yeah, we played there a few years ago at Notre Dame, and probably around the same time, I think.
Yeah.
When we played there a few years ago. Yeah.
And so, and we talk about this a lot, like there's the mental side of the sport. And when you go into the season thinking you're going to be 7-1 when you see Notre Dame, and you come into the season and you're 1-7.
1-8, yeah.
You know, 1-8.
Yeah.
Like, does the coach start losing the locker room? Do the kids start checking out? Do the kids start, and there's so much that goes into that whole conversation, the psychology of it, how do you, it's easy to be Nick Saban and be undefeated and keep your team sharp and tell them if they're not on their game, they're going to lose. And this is a big game. It's hard. And I think this is where Marcus Freeman struggled. It's hard to get up for an opponent that you don't think you're going to have to get up for. That's how you lose to an NIU. That's how you struggle with a Marshall, a Toledo. Marcus Freeman wins the big games because it's easy to get your teams up for the big games.
Yeah.
But so I think Florida State, Novell has the ability to get his team up for Notre Dame. Hey, our season's not been what it's been, but this is Notre Dame. Let's go make a statement. Let's go
play spoiler.
Guys' days, right? I mean, so I think you've got athletes. Do you think the coach can get these guys up? It's easier to get up for Notre Dame than it is Wake Forest. It's easier to get up for Notre Dame than it is,
I said you guys didn't lose to Clemson by that much.
No, that was going to bring up, actually, it's a good question because some of the games we were kind of predicted to get blown out by. They still covered the spread. But, and Miami was the same way. Everybody thought Miami was going to be us 100-0 because Miami, will do that to you, especially in a rivalry game like that. They can embarrass you. Yeah. And really put it to you, and they will. And that was a pretty close game for the most part. And then, of course, it gets away from you at the end. But I think I don't see a path here. I understand what you're saying. Of course, it makes all the sense in the world for Norvell to hype the guys up. It's at Notre Dame. It's a night game. It's a big thing. But I think at the end, I think Notre Dame is kind of going to do what they want. Like you said, I think you said establish the run. I think the up front, you guys' offensive line's good. Jeremiah Love is a very good running back. Yeah. Our linebacker play is absolutely terrible. It's year in, year out. I don't know why, for the life of me, at Florida State cannot recruit a linebacker to save their life. Like all these
because they got
middling ACC teams have great linebacker play, and Florida State
yeah.
gets a 3-star guy, and that's the best they can do. And part of that's Randy Shannon. He'll probably be fired at the end of the year. Sorry if you want to.
Sorry if you're listening.
Yeah, sorry if you're listening. Yeah, there's some other guys on the list too. There's gonna get
you can have Bowman later.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can have me later.
A Florida man comes
Yeah.
after him.
Yeah.
I don't know of any
Yeah.
Florida contingent on this podcast.
Yeah,
I think you're.
I think we're in Europe right now. I don't think we've hit Florida.
Yeah,
yet,
we've got
so.
Europe covered, but not Florida. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
you're covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like if Florida State's going to have success, they're going to basically have to figure out a way to get their run game going.
Yeah, we have a good running back. Lawrence Torrefili is a great running back. Actually, I feel bad for him because he is not only a great running back, he catches the ball at backfield too. Like he's probably the best receiver on the team too, but as far as hands wise, and so I think Notre Dame knows that. Obviously, they watch film, so they're gonna attack our weakness. And of course, we got 2 guys splitting all the time now. We got Brock Lynn, who's a sophomore, who played last year when he was thrown into the Wolves, basically against in the ACC championship game, and then his other start was against Georgia in the bowl game, and then next start he has was Clemson. So Mike Norvell must hate him because he only plays him when we have like the biggest games, right?
Expect him this weekend then?
Yeah, he'll probably split time with Luke Kromenhoek. He's a 5-star. He's a more of a dual threat quarterback. I have both of them already. Both can use their legs. They're not elite athletes.
Yeah,
but they do use some of it. Our wide receivers we didn't replace them. The guys we brought in from the portal, we brought in Malik Benson from Alabama. He's been a big disappointment. We brought in Jalen Brown from LSU. The guys we brought in didn't have a whole lot of experience of playing time at the previous schools.
Yeah.
So, you think you have all these dudes, you're bringing in because you think, oh, he's from Alabama, he's from LSU, and they haven't quite lived up to it.
There's a reason they're leaving these places.
Well, I'm gonna say.
Well,
what
yeah,
about, what about the Alabama quarterback that went to Louisville?
Yeah.
Or I'm not quarterback, wide receiver.
Yes. Yeah, Ja'Cory Brooks. He went to Louisville.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very
Incredible.
Yeah, I kind of give credit to Alabama, because that's the crazy thing about the portal is when your coach leaves or retires or whatever reason, they open that up to that school, so you can go in and raid their roster.
Yeah.
And for Kalen DeBoer to retain some guys that he did and able to bring in recruits and keep them there without flipping, is a pretty good testament to what they believe in him. So, back to Florida State. We have some our guys that we've been there for 4 years. We have receivers who never hasn't done a damn thing. So, and that's part of it too. The guys never got developed. Yeah. So the guys you had for 4 years, they're just now playing now, and they're decent guys, but they haven't done anything. They haven't proved themselves in 4 years. So, and that's part of it too. Development is a big thing too.
Yeah.
You can always go to the portal and get a quick fix, but I think a lot of people are upset that the coaching staff hasn't developed the players that we've had, and that is very disappointing. And that's why you're seeing the product on the field, because when you lose talent, you need something to replace it with, right? At least comparable. But when you don't get that, you get a 1-8 team.
Yeah, and that's tough. So there's no reason, and this is the exact reason I'm going to say this. There's no reason Florida State should be competitive. I mean, will Notre Dame cover the spread or not? It's 24.5?
It's 26.
26 right
26.
now.
26. Yeah, it's climbing.
And let's remember, we had that preseason spread at 4.
Yeah.
Was preseason.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, because this is one of the big games. Like, Vegas puts out some of the big games for the year. So this one was one that was out early before the season. Yeah, 4.5, I think.
Yeah, you should have jumped on that.
No, this is the one where you circle the calendar, you look forward to this. This is going to be a big game. I mean, this should have been a top 5 matchup.
When we're talking about ticket price at the beginning of the year, I think I'd have written down this game's like $275 get in. I mean, I saw tickets today. It was like $53, like to get into this game.
This is probably the cheapest game you've gone to of the year, probably.
No, we bought the tickets face value, so all the tickets are about the same.
We bought in preseason thinking like this game's going to be a couple $100 to get into, like at the time of it. So you buy them early, you got face value, you feel great about it, and now you're like, Oh, well, guess you could have waited on that one.
Coulda-
but-
yeah. Who would have thought, right?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
I didn't want to.
And it's our only night game, so that puts it that much. Like, it's our only night game. Should be a top 10 matchup coming to South Bend. Like, this game is the game. Of the
This
year.
was a marquee game. This was the only good game on Notre Dame's schedule in the preseason.
Home
Like,
game.
Home game. This was the only good.
Oh,
Yeah. Like, we went to A&M. We knew that was going to be a big game.
Right.
Yep.
But, like, when you looked at the home roster and the home schedule, it was like
Miami, Ohio, NIU, Virginia, Florida State, and Stanford.
Yeah, it's like,
Like
okay,
at Notre Dame Stadium, it's like
circle the Florida State game. That's the big game. That's
Gotta
the
be there.
marquee game.
Yeah.
That's the one you want to see. I mean, that's and it's not worked out that way. So again, I said this earlier, Marcus Freeman gets up for the big games and he wins the big games. However, we've struggled against the games that.
Yep.
And now, what are we going to get?
now okay, you can go.
Yeah. So what are we going to get is the question. So I can see a scenario where Florida State wants to play spoiler, wants to knock. We can't do anything except knock Notre Dame out of the playoffs. Let's go knock those guys out of the
Because
playoffs.
we did talk about this is a rival.
This is a rivalry.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much the Florida State Notre Dame rivalry means to the current players,
right.
but I mean, it is a rivalry.
fan base,
Base is definitely a rivalry. How much that influences, I don't know. But there's a chance to play spoiler. There's a chance to salvage your season. You know, we can do this. Like, we didn't beat Miami, but we can beat Notre Dame, kind of thing. And it's a mark. And Notre Dame gets everybody's best shot. So I can see a scenario where Notre Dame comes in thinking this is a 1-8 Florida State team. They're trash, and takes them lightly, and all of a sudden finds themselves down 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. I can see that scenario. I think Notre Dame and the Miami of Ohio game turned a corner, and I'm hoping they turn that corner where the defense played with a chip on its shoulder. They played with some attitude, even though there was no reason for Miami to be in that game, Ohio to be in that game. They took it to Miami of Ohio defensively. I'm kind of hoping we'll see that, but I'm very much concerned, like, that Notre Dame team shows back up.
Yeah,
we get that NIU vibe, and you can't bring the NIU vibe to the Florida State game, and Florida State bring the NIU vibe that we got nothing to lose. We're playing with house money. Let's go beat them.
So 2 points I've got here.
Yeah,
we talked about this after the last bye week. Notre Dame after a bye with Marcus Freeman has been incredible.
Yes,
we're coming off a bye week this week. That makes me feel really good about this. Also, I was reading something every Thursday before a game. Marcus Freeman sits down and they talk about NIU loss and how that affected them every Thursday since that game's
never
happened.
forget.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we've played pretty well against lower opponents since then. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Coming off a bye, hearing that this week. Definitely like the Irish in this one. So let's get into this. We need score predictions. And don't forget, we've got a contest for a Sam Hartman signed jersey, people.
That's right.
So if you are following us,
follow us,
comment, tag a friend. Oh, my bad. You got to comment the score. Tag a person. Doesn't have to be a friend. Could be a Florida State fan. Tag a Florida State fan if you really want.
Yeah.
You know, tell them.
Go get Florida man.
Yep, exactly. Let them know that we're going to beat them. And then you got to say who's going to win. We need the score. And then we also need, that was it. Just that easy.
Comment, pick the score.
Yep.
Tag a friend.
And follow us.
And follow us on social. That's it. If you're correct,
Sam Hartman jersey coming right to your doorstep.
Via the finest delivery service available.
Yep, exactly.
If you're local, we'll hand deliver it even.
Oh.
Maybe I'll even get Caden to sign it. Well, okay, I won't do that.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, hit us up.
Yep.
Let us know what you think. So
definitely.
Jim Bowman,
you're the guest of honor
Florida
today.
man.
Yep.
You're the guest. What do you got for a score prediction?
And that's spreads 26 and a half ish, over unders 42 and a half. That influences what?
Yeah, that's a crazy thing. 24 and a half spread. 26 point spread, and then you said the under is 42 now.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so you're almost thinking if it's that big of a spread, it's going to be a high scoring game, and Florida State doesn't score more than 15 points a game. So, boy, if they're going to play inspired football or not, that's a good question. Because a few years ago when we came to Notre Dame, we kept it close at first.
Yeah.
And you guys pulled away. Yeah, it was actually a pretty entertaining game. But that's when we were kind of coming up and kind of had a reason to play. And, there's a lot of Florida State insiders I follow. And the good thing is about Mike Norvell, he allows access to all local media, right? So these guys go to every practice.
Jeez.
They watch. So you have boots on the ground. So that's kind of who I follow, these guys who tell me what's going on, and a couple guys they set their binoculars up in the press box and player watch basically on the sideline, and they start reading, trying to read the room on the players, like what they're saying, or they're yelling at each other, they're fighting, or who's quitting on plays and who's trying. So, they had that last week. You could see a little bit of quit in some guys, and some guys are playing more inspired because they want a roster spot next year, and they're playing for something. So when you're 1-8 and there's no chance for a bowl, there's nothing to really play for. I don't see this thing getting close. If they do, it'd be great, but I think it's probably going to be Notre Dame 42, Florida State maybe some garbage points, maybe at the end, maybe we get 14, maybe
42-14.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's hard to predict. My expectation is Notre Dame is going to have their way. And they're going to come out fired up, bye week, everything else, a lot to play for. Because I think the motivation Marcus Freeman has is not Florida State. I think the motivation he has is
4 data points.
Yeah, we got 4 chances to prove ourselves, and there's a real possibility Notre Dame could go undefeated and somehow get slighted out of the college football playoffs.
Oh, no.
I mean,
Rest of the season, we've lost one.
Where have we heard this before?
Yeah, I think
you mean undefeated the rest of the season? No.
Undefeated the rest of the season.
Right.
Yeah, like we could, if we don't win the next 4 games
Convincingly.
we're out of the playoffs. And even if we win the next 4 games, there's a scenario where we're out of the playoffs. I mean, it's less likely. So I think he's got the motivation. Not only do you have to win, but you have to win big. You have to make a statement. You have to prove you belong here.
Yeah.
Because again, if you didn't have that NIU loss, you're top 5 in the country.
Yeah.
You're hosting first round bye, or you're hosting the first round or you're hosting a first round game. You don't get the bye. So I think they've got all kinds of motivation, all kinds of reason. But I do have a little bit of fear that Florida State comes in amped and we come in underrated. But I don't think that's like a small fear for me. Like my gut feel right now is I think Notre Dame's going to come in and play well. And I think Florida State's going to struggle. And I've been back and forth on the score. And I think somewhere around 38-7. 38-7 is kind of what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go back to this because I feel like I hit this home last time, off a bye week. Notre Dame under Mark Strum has played incredible out of a bye. They've 4-0, 5-0. I don't remember where we're at now, but it's they've dominated these games.
Yep.
And most of them have been against lesser opponents. Besides BYU, I think it was our only ranked matchup, and we won that one by a score. But they kind of scored late, so
it was not as close as the score said it was.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm expecting Irish domination. I'm going to go 45-3 is my final score prediction. I think the Notre Dame defense is going to lock down Florida State. I mean, 45-3 is my gut feel. I almost went shutout, but I think Florida State gets a field goal at some point.
So we said that. So the game's going to end up being 7.
Our best player, by the way, is Ryan Fitzgerald, our kicker. He's amazing.
He hasn't missed this year, I think.
No, he's
which
it's hard to believe that I'm actually talking about a special team player being.
Hey.
Come on, not on this podcast.
This is a special team friendly show.
Yeah, we love the specialist here.
That's true. Yeah, you're for the brand.
We support specialists here.
Yeah, and but I was looking at his stats. And he was 10 for 10 on extra points.
And the crazy thing is, a few years ago when he came in, he was absolutely terrible. It was a miracle if he made it for 35.
Yeah,
that was the shining star on the team, huh?
Yeah,
he's your leading scorer.
Yep.
It's probably true.
I don't know. I just do that stuff.
Without doing your research, you're probably right.
Well, here's what I do know. I have seen teams where the kicker has been the leading scorer. Those aren't usually good records.
Yeah.
That when your kicker's your leading scorer, it's usually not a good record.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. You want your kicker to make them, but you don't want them to make them a lot.
Yeah.
Or have to make a lot of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about this real quick. Wrap this up. I mean, the rankings came out for the college football playoff.
First one, yeah.
And I know Carter and I did our guests, our prediction, what we thought. And for the most part, we were pretty close. I think we had what?
We were in the ballpark.
We had IU out, and we had Alabama out, which are actually in. We had SMU in, and we had A&M who were actually out. But I think
they're sitting at 13 and 14.
we were two or three spots off. I think the biggest shock for me is probably that IU got as much love as they did, and that Miami is getting more love than BYU.
Which I know the national story is IU should be getting more love, but
I'm
not
102nd strength of schedule. They don't have a quality win.
One team over 500. They
I think you put a lot of weight to the fact they've won every game by 2 scores.
Oh, yeah.
I think they belong in the top 15, maybe top 12 even. I'm just not sure they belong at 8.
So yeah, I think our big question or debate has been, why is BYU 9 and IU 8?
Yeah. And how did BYU's undefeated? They've got a quality win.
Yeah.
They've got a top 25 win.
Yeah.
Like
it was SMU, right?
They beat,
SMU is out.
I lost the bet on that game. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying they beat SMU.
Yeah, BYU.
Yeah,
BYU.
no, I picked SMU to win that game.
And
Yeah.
SMU's ranked 13th, so clearly the committee likes them.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't give credit to SMU. So I think that's a little wonky. I don't understand the committee's selection on that one. But I think overall, Notre Dame came in at 10, and I feel like, okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to see this a little higher, but
I saw a lot of projections between 6 and 10, so I was like, fine with me. Like,
as long as we're not out, I think our resume is good enough that we should be in the top 12.
Yeah.
Again, margin of error is slim because the highest ranked group of 5 team is going to get in it, and so there's only 11 spots for us to occupy.
I was saying right now Boise State's at 12, so it's not like we're out to worry about someone jumping from way back. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't think anybody outside the top 16 has a very good shot of making the playoffs.
So that's your opinion.
Yeah, Paul Feinbaum thinks Ole Miss has a shot.
Well, but see, Ole Miss is 16.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the only one I think he picked.
And they've got Georgia on their schedule.
They do.
So
and
if you beat Georgia,
probably gonna jump up.
That helps, right?
Yeah, that's games this week, isn't it?
That's
I just looked at it.
That is this week.
Yeah,
that's
I say
and they have them at home too. That's down in the SIP, right?
Yeah. I would say it depends if Ole Miss shows up though. They've been completely different teams every week. It seems like they've been all over the place. I mean, I haven't been able to watch a whole lot of them, but I've just seen. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
I thought they're gonna be decent, and then they lose to someone. It's like, really?
What?
But yeah, I was gonna say. So that's kind of the question. Is so, what's the farthest back team we think that can make the college football playoff?
And I've been back and forth on this. I think 16 Ole Miss is the highest ranking team that has anybody in the top 25 can make it.
Yep.
I think the probability falls way off after Ole Miss. I think really the top 15, 16 teams right now feel like the most likely to make it. Now, I haven't gone through all the scenarios. All the SEC schools have to play each other and how they're going to beat each other up. But I looked at like Penn State, for example, lost to Ohio State. Penn State doesn't have a top 25 win.
No.
All they've got is a decent loss to Ohio State. And then it's like, well, who does Ohio State beat?
Directional schools.
They beat Penn State. And they lost to Oregon. Now, it was close. They lost to Oregon by 1.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, so there's a lot of association factor going in here. Like, well, yeah. A lot of eyeball tests. I don't know 100% how the committee makes their selection. I know there's an analytics that goes into a strength of record, strength of schedule. Because IU strength of schedule is terrible, but their wins are good. They've won by multiple scores.
They beat the crap out of whoever's in front.
Yeah. So then you get to that strength of record. I don't know how the computers are calculating that and how they're picking it. And there's always the bias. Like if you're a Big Ten guy or gal, I being a Notre Dame person who's not in a conference, we do support the ACC on non-football, but I know this. Like I go to the South for work, and I'm an SEC country a lot, and there are people who are Tennessee fans, Alabama fans, Georgia fans, Florida fans. I run across all the time, and they root for the SEC in the postseason. Like. They want to win.
Same thing with Big Ten basketball.
Big Ten's the same way.
Indiana, yeah.
ACC's the same way when it comes to basketball. Like, oh, there's 8 teams that made the tournament, kind of. So these people on the committees have associations with these schools and these conferences. There's probably, even if it's not a conscious bias, there's a bias that they have for their conference. It's just natural.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a benefit, right? Because I know in the old BCS, if you made the tournament, you got $1 million just for making the game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's $1 million every time, and the conference gets the $1 million, not the school.
Yeah.
And then the school gets like 40% of it, and everybody else in the conference gets to split up the other 60%. So yeah, if you can get 4 Big Ten teams into the first round, or 4 ACC teams, or whatever your conference, if you can make that argument, it's good for your conference.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to love you. You get special treatment, special parking on on Commissioner's Day or whatever it is at the conference. So who do you think, Carter? Do you think there's somebody outside the top 16 that can make the playoffs?
Yeah, my farthest back team I've got sitting at number 20, Colorado. I think they've got a real shot here.
Ooh.
So if Iowa State plays Kansas State, I believe that last weekend of the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
if Kansas State, who is a ranked team, can beat Iowa State, Colorado's into that Big 12 championship. And then they're sitting with the date with BYU.
And see, they don't have anybody on their schedule that is a ranked team on Colorado's schedule. So they could win out their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a conference you can win,
It's the Big 12.
it's the Big 12.
Yeah.
I mean, I think BYU's good. I think SMU's good. But I think Colorado can compete with those teams.
Well, SMU's in the ACC.
I'm sorry.
I know it's crazy, but SMU's out.
Yeah,
because,
SMU's
the realignment's really fun. Keep
yeah.
up with everybody.
No kidding. But yeah, Iowa State, Kansas State, last week of the year, it's like, okay, Kansas State probably has a real shot to beat Iowa State there. And Kansas State's 2 loss in conference. So Colorado's only 1 loss. So that would push them into that championship game. So it's like, okay, 1 game you're going to take. All I know is Colorado's got some big-time players. I don't know if they're one of the best teams in the country, but they got some big-time players. And big-time players,
Are they big enough? Are they good?
big-time players are going to show up in big-time games, right?
Are they good enough to beat BYU?
Yeah. I mean,
And that's all they have to do, and then they're in.
Yep.
So I would say that Colorado has they have a chance. Like,
Yep.
Maybe
and they still need stuff to go in their favor, but I'm just saying, I think that's probably my farthest team back that I was looking at scenarios like, all right.
Do you think there's anybody outside the top 25 that has a chance? Because I don't. I think the probability outside the top 25.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who's at the bottom. So I've got Army at 25, Mizzou at 24, Clemson 23, Louisville 22, Washington State 21.
21.
Yeah, I don't think Vandy's getting in. Like, that's a team that's been on the bubble for that 25 range. Like, I'm trying to think of teams that have been in the AP poll around that bottom.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think anyone around, because those are mostly 3 to 4 lost teams at this, like 3 lost teams at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you make an argument that 3 lost Louisville. I don't think they can make the ACC championship. Like, realistically, Clemson, I don't think so. Mizzou, I don't think so. I mean, I guess if you want to say Army, I guess if Boise State loses 2 games, Army could be the highest ranked Group of 5 team that could make it. But like, and I don't know who would be after them in the Group of 5, like if who's right outside the top 25. But I'm just like,
I don't see anybody stumble. I don't see Boise State stumbling.
and that's my point. Like, I don't see it either, unless the running back, whatever, is out. And
Yeah. I mean, because that was the joke I was going to make with Jim earlier. I think Florida State's best bet is to send some raw chicken to the Notre Dame hotel the night before the game.
yeah,
See if they get a little salmonella food poisoning going. They got a chance of
raw steak, maybe.
Yeah, it's like if everybody's sick, they
Yeah.
can't play.
Right.
But yeah, I just don't see Boise State stumbling.
No.
And I think it's interesting because there's a whole conversation about could Boise State find themselves in the top 4 with some of the SEC and potentially Big Ten carnage.
Well, and like we're talking about Colorado. So what if Boise State wins out and then Colorado wins the Big 12? Are they going to jump above 12? Or are they going to be sitting in that like 15, 16 range? And then they're the 12 seed and Boise State's the 4 seed.
Yeah.
Like, how fun of a situation would that be? I mean, that would be.
The question was, like you said, the non-Power 5, the highest rated non-Power 14
Power 5 team.
conference.
Power 4.
Power 4 now because Pac-12 is coming back now, but it's
Well,
it's
they
not
say
very
so.
good. Yeah. So they can qualify for the top 4 spot then.
So it's not it's the 4 highest rated conference champions.
Yeah, right. That's okay.
So it's not, doesn't necessarily have to be that Power 4.
Okay.
It's the 4 highest ranked Power 4 champions, and then the 5th gets an automatic
Right.
bid.
Right.
So they
I
don't.
didn't know if there was some stipulations on like the non-Power 4, like the highest.
Yeah.
rated.
No,
I thought they
yeah.
had to. I
Well,
didn't
no.
know if they could crack the top 4 or not.
Yep,
That was-
it's the 4 highest
Okay.
The
ranked
4
conference
highest conference
Yeah.
ranked champion
get the bye.
get
Yeah.
the bye. And then the highest ranked Power,
Or
not
the-
Power 5,
Yep, the 5th highest ranked champion.
yeah.
5th highest ranked champion.
Yep.
I thought it was the champion of the anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's said.
So some of those guys are jockeying because the Mountain West is where
Boise State.
Boise State's at, right?
Yep.
And then BYU's in the Big 12.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's. I think it's interesting. I don't really hate the first ranking though. I thought I'd hate it more than I do. There's some controversy.
We
to
thought
it.
like
Oh,
there was
yeah,
going to be
yeah.
something we didn't really. Yeah.
Yeah. Your first impression when you look at it, you kind of want to rub your eyes and look twice because you can't believe you see IU in a college football playoff.
Oh,
scenario,
yeah.
Like,
right.
Is this
No
is this
kidding.
1980 something basketball?
1980,
What
yeah.
is this? What is this?
Yeah, then you like see Boise State and BYU on there. You got some feel good stories on there,
Oh yeah.
and that's the it's such a broad topic on. I mean, that's a topic we're talking about, but it's such a broad thing you can bring up because you're looking at a 30,000-foot view and you're trying to figure out all this mess because
yeah.
within the years you've had, you're like, oh, we got 4 teams. Let's go to 12, okay?
Yeah.
And then as soon as they go to 12, the next day they're talking about going to 16.
Yeah.
So 16's coming.
Yeah.
So but you
liking
still
12.
got jumbled messes because
Yeah.
like the questions like the SEC and Big Ten, Greg Sankey is the commissioner of the SEC, right? And he
Yeah.
gets on his soapbox on ESPN and cries and complains that SEC gets no love and they deserve 4 teams in, and the Big Ten will get in and they'll do their thing. So
Yeah.
and that's the thing that people don't realize. I think you talked about that on your first or second podcast about follow the money, right, Chad? Because you brought that up about this is a TV event in the end, right? It's made for TV. As much as you want to sell things on the field and see great quality football, the networks play billions of dollars for this product, right?
Yep.
So they want to put the best teams aesthetically on the field as well. So I think that it's going to be real interesting when these SEC teams, because they're kind of beating up on each other a little bit, right? Because in the Big Ten's kind of the same way. Oregon will probably get there, I think. I don't see Indiana beating Ohio State at Ohio State. So I think you kind of pencil some of these things in. But the question is how much emphasis they put on the conference championships because, if like Georgia last year, they lost. The only loss was Alabama in the championship game, right? And then they're not in the playoff because of that one loss. Everything they did during the season was a race because they lost one game at the final game of the year.
Right.
And that put more emphasis on everything. So I'm kind of surprised that the loser of these championship games, where they fall.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think.
And my take coming into the season was if you make a conference championship, there's a very good chance you're going to be in it. Now, with the Big 12 this year, it doesn't look like they're going to be.
I think it's going to set up where there's going to be at least 3 SEC, at least 4.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.
Right.
And at least 3 Big Ten.
That's what we're going to do next. So we're going to get an over-under on how many Big Ten teams and SEC teams
I
get
think
in for
7.
fun.
I think 7 is going to be like the solid number. I think 4 from the SEC, 3 from the Big Ten. I think 7 is going to be like, okay, they're probably going to get there. They're going to get 8, though. Are they going to get the 8 spot?
Because I think their initial proposal when they started all this, like the SEC demanded, and Big Ten, I think they demanded 3 or 4 automatic bids no matter what.
Yeah.
And they kind of got that erased out of that because people started complaining. So,
but you go to the 16 team, they're going to have that.
Oh, yeah.
And that was kind of my point is the committee didn't knock Penn State very much for that loss.
Right,
No.
yeah.
And so I think it's completely interesting because,
because I'm a college football purist at heart, right? Because I've been a fan for so long. I'm a diehard Florida State fan, but I'm a college football fan first and foremost, honestly, because it's a great sport.
Yeah.
And you have stuff like this that makes it real exciting because I don't have a dog in the fight anymore, but
it's the first one, though.
yeah.
But you wanna
Oh,
watch-
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I think any college football fan loves the expansion and loves a little bit of parity in it because, the past 10 years or whatever now, it's kind of been invitational, right?
Yeah.
Been Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama invitational, right?
Yeah.
And they throw a
And Georgia.
TCU in every now and then, and Georgia now is starting to
Yeah.
play really well. They're back-to-back champ. They're going for a three-peat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the interesting thing. I think every team 1 through 15 can make the playoff,
yes,
and I think every team's beatable.
yes,
Yeah.
I would 100% agree with
I
that.
mean, even though
And
we got
This is like, it's like March Madness, though. Like, that's what Notre Dame's got to be. We got to be in the dance.
yes,
You
just
can't be
wanna
on the
get there.
outside. Like, if
Yeah.
you get in, you got a shot.
yes,
yeah,
Like, obviously, if you don't get in, you don't get a shot. But it's like, we don't have a 2012 Alabama that's going to put 40 guys in or something stupid in the
Right.
NFL. Like, when you walk out there, you're like, holy cow. Like,
Yeah,
what do
'cause-
we got going on here? Like, is this not an NFL team? Like,
Yeah.
there's some good teams out there this year, but I don't
a lot of good teams, a lot of good players.
yes.
yeah,
but
it's just-
all of them are beatable.
Yes, and that's shown this year. Like Ohio State, we were like, okay, they've been good, but they haven't beat anyone. But they almost beat Oregon. Like, and Oregon's number 1 in the nation right now. So
But they have a loss,
Yeah.
and they lost to Oregon. And all the money that Ohio State supposedly spent, I mean, I don't know, $70 billion or whatever it was. I mean, the GDP of a small country, whatever
Yeah.
they spent on NIL, you expected they were going all in and they were going to be dominant. And
Yeah.
for them to come out and lose to Oregon, like,
Yeah.
what? And that was a 1-point game. It wasn't like this big
Right.
dominant. But I didn't expect Oregon to come in and be number 1 in the country. I thought Oregon would be a top 12 team.
Oh yeah.
In preseason never expected Oregon to be the number 1 team in the country, and they've earned it. And they're not going to. I don't see them stumbling.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting because I expect from the Notre Dame perspective, there's going to be some Big Ten teams beat up on each other. There's going to be some SEC. I'm just not sure the committee's going to punish them that much.
So my thing is though with this 12-team playoff, like the 14 playoff seemed like every year, like and Notre Dame was a part of this. Like don't get me wrong, we saw a blowout every single year. Like we were definitely a part of it, but there was some other teams that got blown out too. Like I know we get the national media, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
But this year in this 12-team playoff, I'm like looking at these matchups. They're like we get, and it's like Boise versus Ohio State. I mean, I think Ohio State wins that one probably, but it's like IU, Tennessee. Okay, that one, Tennessee's probably going to win, but is it going to be a 56-7 game? I don't know. But then you got Bama, Texas, and Notre Dame, Penn State. It's like those games I don't see being more than 14 points each. Like,
yeah, all I know is last weekend Notre Dame was on a bye, and I'm like you, Jim. I love to watch college football.
Yeah.
I found myself in front of the TV watching multiple games.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the cool thing about this is when you look at the rankings, you look at these matchups, no matter how these numbers fall, 1 through 15, who falls in the top 12, they're all going to be compelling games to watch for various reasons. I mean, if IU makes it, is everybody going to be all in? Is Signetti? It's like, is this guy going to like shock the world?
Yeah.
Right. If A&M finds their way in, like that, they've been kind of a darling lately. If Boise State wins and gets themselves in, you want to see Boise State's must watch. I mean, they got Barry Sanders 2.0 back there running back. Like every one of these teams is going to have a compelling story, and I think it's going to be great for the sport, and it's going to be great for the argument. And we really need like an Alabama, a Clemson, like to be in that 13, 14, 15 spot. The committee needs that because that's just going to push everybody to say, yeah, we got to expand to 16 teams.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do.
I'm like, we haven't even played 12 yet, but I really like 12. Like I'm like this.
Yeah, it's a good number. Yeah.
Because with 16, like you're not going to see these big brands that you're going to be arguing for getting in. You know what I mean? Like, okay, every once in a while, but it's like 12. I mean, we're sitting here with Alabama and Clemson outside. Like,
and 5 years ago, that'd be impossible to think about.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Top. But it's like, we're still like, there's still a chance. Like these, like this is a terrible year for Alabama when they have 2 losses and they're sitting at 13.
Yeah.
Like it's still a lot of fun though, because it's like, okay, they still got a chance to get in, but we've got these underdogs. We've got these other people, but it's like, you go 16, it's going to be like, okay, we're going to see a 16 versus 1 first round matchup. So let's see who's 16 this year.
Ole Miss
versus Oregon. And then, yeah.
LSU versus Ohio State.
Okay, maybe these matchups will be decent right now, but yeah.
They're not terrible.
Okay.
You don't want to hear a Southern accent, Brian Kelly?
Yeah, oh yeah. Big game Brian. Come on now.
Where'd that go? It just disappeared. You know, I miss it. I wanted to come back.
He lost it in the NFL.
He lost it.
He lost the NFL trade deadline.
Oh.
So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think the playoffs are going to be interesting. Notre Dame's got to win and win out. We got to get some style points. And real Notre Dame fans don't cheer for style points. Real Notre Dame fans are happy if we don't win by 40.
The sportsmanship, you don't blow them out.
That's
okay.
right.
Okay.
I hear all those things, so you can at your boy if you need to.
Yeah.
I don't care. But
as long as you're not from Florida, don't ask.
Yeah, if you're Florida man, don't ask.
Yeah,
right?
you delete him instantly.
So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. The game tomorrow or Saturday is going to be what it is. I fully expect it to not be very close, where I was expected to be a 7-point game at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get that. So, and then it's got a lot of college football playoff implications starting the next few 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, this is because it's getting real interesting.
So, like you said, Jim, even if your dog's not in the fight, there's a lot of just what's going to happen drama that you want to just keep an eye on. So, all right. Anything else, Carter? You got anything else?
I mean, Notre Dame Stadium get loud this weekend. Let's go. Night game. A lot of recruits, like we said, on campus. It's going to be electric. It's our only one this year. It's going to be. I'm so pumped for it.
Yeah.
And if you've never been to a Notre Dame night game, like it's a perfect opportunity because tickets are getting cheap. I'm sure they'll get cheaper as it gets closer. People are trying to sell them. It's going to be a little chilly. 52 to 47, I think, is after the game.
Here's my advice when it comes to a football game: just keep your feet warm. If you don't lose your feet, it's concrete. Don't wear tennis shoes. Double up on the socks if you have to. Go electric socks. Whatever you got to do.
Got mine.
As long as you keep your feet warm, you can survive.
Yep.
But once you lose your feet, you're done.
Yep.
You know, you're looking for the bathroom to try and warm them up. So,
Yep.
And it's not going to be that cold. We've been colder.
Yeah, definitely.
And we've been much hotter. So I'll
Yep.
take the cold this
No
year.
kidding.
So yeah, basketball season's starting.
Yep.
And I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm guessing if I check the score, you gonna check a live score for us?
Yeah, we're up 67-41 on Stonehill. The
All right.
Powerhouse.
Powerhouse
Stonehill is really going to be a good team this year, so we're really dominating them.
Yeah.
So good job, Irish.
They're predicted to win. Well, I don't even know what conference they're in, but
Indiana Wesleyan's conference, I think.
wow. I don't know what conference that is either, but I think it's NAIA. So
Yeah.
It's good time of the year, man. It's exciting part of college football is just it's ramping up, and
Yep.
I kind of feel bad for college basketball and all these preseason low excitement games are going on, and maybe it's good for college basketball because no one cares how bad their sloppy
Christmas,
looks
yeah.
right now because
Yeah.
everybody's focused on the college football, except maybe a few guys in the ACC country because
Yeah.
I think most of those guys are turning the basketball season now. So, all right, well, Jim,
Hey.
appreciate you being
Yeah,
here.
thanks for
Appreciate
being
you
here.
being on.
Thanks for
Yeah,
being
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
maybe you'll get lucky. You'll get the score right, and we'll send you the
Sam Hartman
signed
jersey.
jersey.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I
how
want
would
a
that be?
portrait of him too. You know, he's a manly man. You know,
Hey, I
the
don't
hair,
know.
the beard. It's
I don't know if your wife follows college football, but I bet
No.
you she'd like a picture of Sam Hartman.
yeah, she probably would.
Probably would.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Irish 365 podcast.
You can find us wherever you get your podcast.
We are on YouTube, X, Instagram, and Facebook.
Just search for Irish 365 Pod.
And you can always reach us at our email, irish365pod@gmail.com.
Good night.
And God bless.